Introduce Tom Perriello. Back again.
Thank you very much to our hosts. Thank you to everyone here, and to you for your leadership, which I'll get back to. But you know, it hasn't been so long ago that many of you stepped up to have my back during a very rough time, and I just want you to know how much I remember that and how much I appreciate that. It felt like a home away from home. We were remembering some of those evenings and fundraisers and things together, and I think we really do have a lot to be proud of with that race, not just winning the first time, coming from 34 points behind for a race that in that incarnation had never been held by a Democrat, but in a year that was frankly a disaster, to have one of the closer races in the country to outperform the national average. I think we really did make a point, which is that we do better when we stand by our values, when we're proud of our values, when we're proud of standing up to fight for senior citizens, when we're proud to stand up for working and middle class people, when we're proud to stand up for science, for rationality, for trying to make the tough decisions to make our country stronger. So it really meant a lot, and I don't look back on that with regrets. I look back with a lot of pride on what we did for Central and Southern Virginia, but also a message that we sent. So thank you very much for your role in that. And it's a fight that I know Delegate Hope and others in this room are continuing to carry forward. I'm a results guy. I don't think you know, fighting for the sake of fighting does a lot of good for people sometimes. You know, there were always those activists who said, well, if we're just loud enough, we'll prove how pure we are, and even if it has no impact on people's lives, won't that be great? No, it doesn't do any good. But there are times where the fight has to define the choices that we're making. And I think we've seen with the state legislatures over the last year or two that those choices are being put before the people. And you saw with the Progressive Caucus and Delegate Hope and others, this willingness to stand up. I will be honest, as much as I love what goes on and hate what goes on in D.C., for the last year, the action hasn't been in D.C. It's been at the state and local level. We've seen it in Wisconsin, we've seen it in Maine, we've seen it in Ohio, and we have seen this effort to essentially hijack, at an incredibly accelerated rate, this war on working and middle class people. This effort to undermine the basic social safety net for our seniors who worked hard and played by the rules to get that. And what you've seen in legislature after legislature is people like this man who stood up and said, that's not going to happen on our watch. Sometimes we don't have the numbers to stop it, but at least we're going to go and say, we're going to make you fight for this. We're going to go into every district around the Commonwealth of Virginia, no matter what people consider a race that's off limits. And we're going to go and we're going to fight, not for ourselves, but because this has a real impact on people's lives. There's seniors who are worried about whether they're going to be able to have any dignity or security in their years. There are parents who wake up and say, are our kids going to get a real shot in schools if these cuts keep coming over and over again? Are we going to lose a generation of the best and the brightest who want to go into teaching because we're making it a profession that's harder and harder to see as a career because of the politics being played by people across the country and across this Commonwealth? We've seen an unprecedented number of young people get excited about teaching through Teach for America and all sorts of other programs. And rather than trying to say to them, thank God what you're doing for your community and your country, we want you in there to think of this as not just a cool thing to do for a couple of years, but something you might actually think of as a career. And what signal do we send? We send exactly the opposite signal. We see that being sent. Virginia, under Governor Kane and Governor Warner, best state in the country to do business. We fell out of that top ranking this year because of cuts in education. So when we think about this, this isn't about getting more D's in there or R's in there, though we have some feelings about that. It's about that kid out there, whether, no matter what zip code they're born into, they're going to have that shot. You know, this was something that was ingrained in me very early on. As many of you know, my dad grew up, son of Italian immigrants, in and out of poverty in West Virginia. And he was the product of strong public education, as well as a very matriarchal Italian mother who made sure that he behaved and did everything right. He went to a great state university, the University of Virginia, which is how my family ended up in Charlottesville, and was able to live out the American dream in that way. And the question is, are we still serious about that? Are we still serious about that from a kid's perspective? As many of you know, I've spent a lot of this year overseas. I've been working with some of the democracy movements in Arab Spring, mainly in Egypt. I also just got back from a trip to Israel, and things are in tremendous flux. There are a couple things that have struck me about that experience, and I'm not going to talk too long because I know it's really hot in here, but let me just say a couple of things. One is that we always say here, you know, elections are won by the people who show up. There's a real tangibility to that in the Middle East right now. These democracy movements were not led by Islamist forces. They were led by liberal reformists. But there is an effort of Islamist parties in some ways to hijack those revolutions. And we sometimes have a tendency to say, okay, well, we did it. We've just put reason out there. Now shouldn't everyone just understand and embrace, and it should kind of solve itself from there? No. It's about showing up over and over and over again to make that argument. And it can be annoying to say, why can't people just figure out that we're the ones fighting for them? But it's about showing up and making that case. One other thing that strikes me is that the rest of the world isn't waiting for us to get our economic house in order. We have to have a competitiveness strategy. And this idea that saying, well, if we just get government out of the way, we're going to be more competitive, unfortunately is completely at odds with the reality of every country we're competing against. Israel has done amazing things. If anyone here hasn't read Startup Nation, you should read it. It's about how it's become this major high-tech, arguably the leading emerging high-tech market in the world. It wasn't from a lack of government intervention. They talk about things like compulsory national service there and the role it's played, education, infrastructure, and other things. You look at countries that are just beaming with potential. We have to figure out what those jobs are going to look like, that are the kind of jobs someone who works hard and plays by the rules can support their family with. Many of us in this room have a degree of economic security, not everybody here, but many do, that most Virginians no longer can feel. We have to go out there and believe that we have a strategy that can help bring those jobs back. And we see it through innovation, through infrastructure, and through education. Lowell babbles on about this all the time, and he's not wrong in terms of green jobs and energy. He's not wrong in terms of the ideas that get small businesses started. I saw it so much in Central and Southern Virginia. So when we're here today, we're excited to support this guy in his very tough race. But we also have a Senate to hold on to this year. And some of you may have gotten my email today. We have a Senate to hold on to next year, that the race between Tim Kaine and George Allen may decide control of the Senate for the entire country. So step up. We don't have a repressive military regime pointing threats at us. We simply have to show up. We have to talk to our neighbors. We have to write checks. These are things that we need to do to make sure that good people win, so that more importantly, they can go to Richmond and make sure good people in the Commonwealth of Virginia have a chance to keep living the American dream. Thank you very, very much.